Here I have some interesting code. As you can see, it creates a lambda object here. Then it sets the value of the .code node to the Hyperlambda equivalent of this particular lambda object. And then it invokes HTTP post, going basically loop back to the same cloudlet, right? Which invokes foo-execute, which happens to be a Hyperlambda file, post, which I've already declared here, using the post verb. Then it passes in the payload, being basically the code. Now, what I want to illustrate with this example is how metaprogramming allows us to do some pretty interesting things. You see, now if I execute this, let's walk through in our minds what actually happens. But before we do, let's just execute it. Here you can see it returns, hello, Thomas Hansen, it is a nice day. Now, the only thing I passed in here was the code, right? I didn't pass in Thomas Hansen anywhere, did I, right? That's because what I did, I took a function and I serialized it and I supplied it to another server. The same server, but it doesn't matter, it could have been another server. Then that other server takes this code and it transforms it into a lambda object. Then this other piece of code invokes this lambda object as if it was a dynamic function, passing in arguments. You see, typically in a client-server relationship, the client provides the arguments, the server provides the code. Here it's the complete opposite. The client provides the code and the server provides the arguments, right? Now, this allows you to do some pretty interesting stuff. Let's have a look at something other. First of all, let's delete this Chinook folder here. And then let's go into create endpoint generator and just generate endpoints for our Chinook database tables. Now, as you can see here, we chose admin and root accounts here as our authorization mechanism, implying that if after we've done this part, we go into HyperID, we expand modules, we expand Chinook, and we open any of these files, you will see that it requires the user to belong to the roles of either root or admin. Okay, so let's modify that on multiple files at the same time, of course. Sorry, wrong snippet. Now, the folder we want to deal with is modules, Chinook. We don't care about counting files again, and I guess we could do this guy, and then it checks to see if it is Hyperlambda comments. We need to preserve comments. We don't care about these guys. Now what we want to do, we want to remove nodes. That happens to have the name of auth.ticket.verify in addition to its comment, because we are preserving comments as we are transforming it from Hyperlambda to Lambda here. Then we want to do io.file.save. Now let's execute this code. Watch carefully now at line 29 when I close this guy and I open it again. And it's still there. Why is it still there? Now, if I close this guy, I open it again. You see I completely messed up everything because I didn't preserve comments. So let me recreate this guy. Override. Now let's open this file again. Now you can see we're back to the original authentication requirements here now. If I execute this guy and I close it and I open it again, you will see now at line 29, there is no authorization requirements. And this is true for every single file in this folder. So I now modified potentially thousands of files with one snippet of code and removed its requirements for authorization. Let's say we want to further modify this code by insert after hyper to lambda, and then we want to insert this thing before validators mandatory. Actually not, we want to do before connect. Insert before connect log.info, endpoint was executed, and then let's create a comment. Now if I close this file and watch carefully here now at line 17 and 18 and I open it again, you will see I took actually the endpoint's code and I dynamically changed it on the fly. This has a lot of serious advantages because it allows us to use existing code files as templates to scaffold and generate codes around some sort of construct, whatever that construct happens to be. It also happens to allow us to query our code base to see, is this code safe? Is it using our database? Is it invoking the log, etc., etc.? This is metaprogramming. And this is one of the unique selling points that you can only do with Hyperlambda. Arguably making Hyperlambda the only dynamic, truly dynamic programming language on Earth.